Let's bring in Democratic strategist Erikka Knuti and Manu, Raju, senior congressional reporter at Politco. Both of you, thank you so much for being on the cycle. And Manu, I got to start with you. We had heard some rumblings around the halls of Congress that maybe this was possible, but if the question was posed to a member of Cantor's staff, they laughed at us. They said we were idiots. I think we all drank the conventional wisdom juice on this one, did not see it coming. How in the world did this happen?
Turnout, Luke. I mean, the bottom line is that, these primaries, as you know, are very difficult to poll. It's hard to get a clear sense exactly who's going to come to the polls. And the Cantor team clearly mispolled this. They thought they were going to win by double digits, maybe 20 points, maybe 30 points. And it was clear his voters did not get to the polls. And the people who were energized were the activist base, the people who wanted to see him gone, who were upset at his compromises that he's made over the years and were concerned about some of his positions on immigration as well as other issues. Those are the folks that organized and got to the polls. That just shows every single Republican here and Democrat too. You really cannot take any race for granted, because at the end of the day, your polls may be wrong, because those are estimations when it comes down to it.
Right. It all depends who the electorate is, who's going to come to the ballot and put your name on it and whatnot. It's a total shocker. I'm still really much in dismay, Manu. Erikka, I want to play for you what Nancy Pelosi said to our own Frank Thorpe from NBC News this morning.
That's too bad for him, but the people have spoken. There are bosses. They decide. The whole dynamic has changed. And what I've always said all along is that people in Washington really don't know, the pundits and the rest, what's going on in the districts.
Now it seems that Democrats are celebrating this. Last night, the DCCC sent out a goodbye Eric Cantor card for a lot of members to sign. And while this certainly will put the House GOP in their shells on controversial issues for the rest of this year, is this a joyous day for Democrats because it means immigration reform won't happen and it puts it into the presidential election year?
I mean, I think Democrats are committed to immigration reform, so they're not happy to see that stall ever. Certainly not now. It would help in the 2014 elections, particularly in the Senate. But, going back to what you're saying about are we happy to see Eric Cantor go, I mean, that depends on who replaces him. I think a lot of that remains to be seen. The opportunities that are going to be for Dems going forward is really going to be determined by how Republicans respond going forward. They have a new majority leader to pick. We have a lot of races right now. There's still primaries to come. Are Republicans going to start to move further to the right? Are they going to read the wrong lesson from this? I'll be honest. I mean, I've got a family down in the 7th District, and I talked to a lot of people down there last night, and they told me to let you guys know that the 7th Congressional District borders are secure. Immigration was not the issue. It really was that, that Eric Cantor had kind of lost touch with his district. The #1 rule is tend your own backyard. I think now the new #2 rule should be for Republicans, check your pollsters, because they are not helping you out right now.
It's like Under Armour, we must protect this house, indeed.
Yeah, I think we're all still shocked and stunned. But Manu, on that point, talk to us about the future of the House GOP leadership. I mean, there's got to be a lot of shuffling going on right now. Now with Cantor's resignation, he was, the second most powerful member of the House. Many people thought he was going to be Speaker. Give us some names that they're tossing around, not only to replace Cantor, but likely Boehner at a certain point.
That's right. And the majority leader spot, the field is really starting to take shape. You're seeing Kevin McCarthy, who's the current majority whip from California. He's going to run for that majority leader position. Pete Sessions, the Texas Republican, the person who ran the National Republican Congressional Committee in 2010 and really during that Tea Party wave and helped bring the Republicans back to the majority. He's also running. He can potentially rely on a very sizable amount of Republicans from that Texas delegation. But there's a wild card. Other members may jump forward. Another Texas Republican, Jeb Hensarling, has not said yet what he's going to do. And if he runs, that can add another element into this race. This is a very it's a difficult thing to handicap, because at the end of the day, these leadership races are done behind closed doors. They're secret ballots. So when members go and they actually cast their vote, they may actually vote another way, even though they're saying something else publicly. So we're really setting the stage for an unpredictable 3 weeks, and trust me, it will get nasty, particularly behind closed doors.
Yeah, no doubt.
Erikka, I appreciate your fresh reporting on how that district is safe. Thank goodness for that. And obviously, this is a very low turnout election, so let's not overstate the importance of what's happening here in terms of nationally. But Brat was able to attack Cantor basically for things that we would call being a grown-up, right? Being willing to work with the other side, or at least listen to the other side. And bipartisanship is already rare in this Congress. Does this situation, this Cantor loss, make it even more rare?
I hope it doesn't. I mean, one of the things that I'm concerned with is I think that a lot of people will kind of believe this idea that it was immigration. I think that was a false line of a lot of pundits inside the Beltway who had to quickly Google, David Brat and be like, what the hell happened there? And immigration popped up because that was his most recent thing. But, really, I think what it is that people are very frustrated with D.C. And Eric Cantor has been running the same kind of politics that he did in this primary, very nasty, very name-calling. And at the end of the day, people want to see stuff move forward. Immigration is an example of something that they wanted to see some movement on that we didn't get any movement. So if you come back as the majority leader and now you're the leader of the group that is not getting anything done and being disappointing and not actually moving things forward, then you are kind of literally the poster child and the leader of everything that people see that's wrong in Washington. So I would hope that when Republicans kind of do their, murder board and kind of look at what really happened, that they would say moving further to the right and not having compromise is a bigger problem. If you look at what happened with Lindsey Graham down in South Carolina on immigration, now there's a guy who voted for an immigration bill, who has been a leader on immigration in the Senate for years. Since I worked in the Senate, he was, one of those leaders behind the scenes on immigration. And I think that he made a very calculated and correct choice that voters would tolerate someone with a different opinion, but what they would not tolerate was somebody who was disingenuous or who they couldn't really tell how they stood. Eric Cantor kind of moved back and forth and wouldn't really make a position, and I think people didn't really feel like they got a sense of what he really stood for, other than not the Democrats, not Obama, not Obamacare. Where does that really leave you if you're the person that he represents? We all have to kind of take a step back and think, at the end of the day, these guys represent people.
Right. And Erikka, the other piece of that is, Dave Brat talked a lot about immigration, but Erikka, he also used that as a way to tie immigration to Eric Cantor being of Wall Street and of corporate interest more than of the district. And in fact, Eric Cantor was a very close ally of Wall Street. Brat talked to Fox News of making exactly that point. Let's take a listen.
It's the most symbolic issue that captures the differences between myself and Eric Cantor in this race, but it also captures that fissure between Main Street and Wall Street.
Erikka, it seems to me like that populist message is something that Democrats should learn something from, too, because Democratic voters do not appreciate a flood of Wall Street cash any more than Republican voters do.
Oh, you're totally right. I mean, going back to what Luke mentioned earlier, the fact that Eric Cantor spent more on steak houses than Brat spent total on his campaign, I mean, really think about that and what that symbolizes and what that's a symptom of. I mean, that is somebody that thinks that steak and dining and whining is more important than, like, pounding the pavement. I mean, so I think that really the misalignment of priorities is very, very clear here.
Well,
and
there's
yes,
no reason you can't do both, Erikka. You can have a little bit of steak, and then you can go pound the pavement to work it off, right?
That's the Boehner philosophy right there, right, Luke?
Yeah, I get that. I mean, who doesn't like a good steak dinner? I know I love one. But I will be honest, I mean, those campaign finance reports are public, and if you know you've got a challenger, why would you put something like that out there? I mean, I'd be a lot more careful about it, and I think the populism is something that does resonate everywhere. The middle class in this country has been squeezed.
Rising up on the right and the left, indeed.
Yes,
Erikka Knuti, Manu, Raju, thank you so much for being on the cycle. We're just getting started. Up